Greetings, metalheads, and welcome to No Nonsense Metal Reviews. I'm George, and I'm back yet again with another collection update for you, taking you through some of my latest vinyl purchases. A nice little stack of LPs I've got here to take you through today, all of which fall pretty firmly within the death metal subgenre, that weird and wonderful world of death metal. So, without further delay, let's kick off with the first article on top of the pile here. This is Devourment, with their album from 2013, I believe. Yep, 2013. This is Conceived in Sewage. Disgusting. So, I don't, as a rule, delve that deep into brutal death metal. I like death metal. I love my old school stuff. There's some more extreme, more aggressive bands along the Suffocation sorts of lines that I do delve into, and Devourment are one of those bands. So Devourment I came across many years ago. In particular, this album was the first and probably only Devourment album I've actually heard. But I stumbled upon this copy. This is a Relapse Records reissue from recent times, and got listening to it again. It kind of inspired me to pick it up. Well, I say pick it up, check it out again on Spotify, and it just reminded me how good this album, this band is. It is very much along the sort of Suffocation lines, incorporating the sort of slam elements of the subgenre, I should say, into their music. Nice little insert here. So the band comprises of Chris Andrews on bass, Mike Miyowski on vocals, Ruben Rosas on guitars, and Eric Park on drums. So there's the guys, there's the band. This is heavy stuff. Seriously groovy, very extreme. But what's lovely about this particular version is look at this wild colour scheme. That's crazy stuff. That is pretty intricate, shall we say. But actually, it's a very solid album. It's sort of 30 minutes of pretty intense, very groovy death metal. As I say, along the Suffocation, Benighted, Aborted kind of lines. If you like any of those bands, then you're definitely going to dig Devourment. I do need to check out their other albums, really, because of all the really sort of brutal bands, I suppose there's going to be a lot of bands that are more extreme, but this is quite palatable. This is quite palatable. Not too dissimilar to bands like Benighted, Broken Hope, where, you know, there's a decent amount of groove, there's a decent amount of chug that you can get into there. The opening track, Legalized Homicide, straight into 50-Ton War Machine, is a pretty solid opener. Then we've got Fucked with Rats, very poetic. Today We Die, Tomorrow We Kill, just some choice cuts there. But all round, a pretty palatable, brutal album with some revolting artwork there. Awesome stuff. Devourment from Texas, USA. Good band. So, a couple of articles. Have actually recently showed this one off in the album ranking of Memoriam that I did recently. Memoriam, UK, old school death metal band, absolutely superb band. I absolutely love Memoriam. And this album is actually their second album from 2018. This is The Silent Vigil, which again came across for very little money indeed. Very little money on Amazon, same as with the Devourment album. And I thought, you know what, it's a nice gatefold package. I think I'll pick that up. So I have mentioned it, I have taken you through this one if you have seen the album ranking that I recently did of Memoriam. But if you haven't seen that one, go check it out. Memoriam are a fantastic band, combining good old-fashioned death metal, plenty of great guitar work there, fantastic riffs galore, great vocals, combining that good old style with, you know, more modern death metal elements as well. But it's just, they are a fantastic band, comprised of Carl Willits on vocals, Scott Fairfax on guitars, we've got Frank Healy on bass, and at this stage we had Andy Whale on drums. Now Andy has left the band. He's now doing his own thing with Death Collector. And then we've got Spike T. Smith in the fold for the last two albums. So the only issue with this album, the second album, although I think some of the songs are really good, just wrestle that insert back in there. Go on, get in there. Although some of the songs are very good, the production on this album really does let it down. It's just way too muffled, it's way too dull, and it doesn't pack the same punch as the other four albums do, sadly. But there's some good tracks there. Definitely, if you like your Bolt Thrower, if you like your good old Morbid Angel, that kind of old school stuff, very riff-driven stuff, then you're probably going to dig Memoriam for sure. But Memoriam's second album, The Silent Vigil, does just underwhelm in terms of production there. But another article that I have recently shown off, but if you haven't seen it, this is your pointer in the right direction. Go check it out. A band you need to hear, Ripped to Shreds, from the USA. I think they're from San Jose, California, if I remember correctly. Ripped to Shreds. Old school death metal, very much in the old Dismember, early Entombed kind of aim. Very freaking good band, absolutely excellent band. I'm not going to go into too much depth because, as I say, there's a whole review dedicated to them. But just to show off this lovely red vinyl of their most recent studio album, Jubian, our full-length album number 3. Lovely colour scheme there, blood red. Again, this is a Relapse record issue. Really nice article. Found it dirt cheap on Amazon. Thought, yeah, I have this album on CD, but you know what? I'll pick it up for just over £10, something silly. Ah, hell yeah, I'll have it on vinyl as well. All round, this is a great album. If you like your good old Dismember, then you're definitely going to dig this. This is Chinese death metal. I say Chinese because it's thematically and lyrically very rooted in Chinese history and culture. You know, there's connections from the members there, fantastic stuff, but this is packing a freaking punch in the old school Scandinavian style death metal ways. This is a lovely vinyl issue. Nice blood red, as I say. All round, Ripped to Shreds are a killer band. Check out the full in-depth review that recently done if you want to know a bit more about them. So that's Ripped to Shreds. Now we're going from Chinese death metal to Egyptian death metal with Scarab. And this is their most recent album from a few years ago now, 2020 in fact. I thought it was 2022 for some reason, but Martyrs of the Storm. If you're not familiar with Scarab, they are a very good band. Serpents of the Nile was the album that got me into the band. Great stuff. I know when we say Egyptian death metal, a lot of people are quite rightly going to be thinking about Nile, with good reason. But Scarab are actually from Egypt, and they produce some cracking death metal. Old school, yeah, it's a little bit more on the brutal end of things. You know, I think it does sit quite comfortably alongside bands like Nile, for example, or Immolation. You know, it's heavy frickin' stuff, but actually, they're a really good band. Not the most active of bands. You know, we're not getting albums every year, so to say, but they're a good band. They're a good band. Some good stuff there. I'm not all that familiar with this particular album, to be honest. Martyrs of the Storm. Only really heard it once or twice, if I remember correctly. But again, stumbled on this one online, very inexpensive, about £8 or something stupid. So picked up that. Just a bit of something different. I do like my Egyptian thematics and, you know, lyricisms and all that good stuff. And Scarab, they do it freaking well. But now we've gone through a few things I've already touched on before, a few things that I'm, you know, loosely familiar with or just sort of getting into a bit more casually. Now we're on to the real nitty-gritty here. So, start in chronological order, shall we? Florida death metal, as I recently had pointed out to me on the channel comments on the Morbid Angel Entangled in Chaos live album. This isn't just US death metal, this is Florida death metal. And this is a lovely vinyl splattery, colory, relapse reissue of the fourth full-length album from 1991, if I remember correctly. Really testing me now. Yeah, 1991. This is Human from the mighty Death. Chuck Schuldier's Death. Wow, what a bloody album. What a band they were. Absolute pioneers. One of the pioneering death metal bands. And Relapse have done a staggering good job at reissuing these albums in full glory. So you can get all the CD versions with, 2 discs and loads of rehearsals and demos and stuff, but these vinyl issues are really nice as well. So this was album number 4. Death went through quite a few lineup changes during their short time. Of course, the founding member, vocals and guitars, the late great Chuck Schuldiner, absolute freaking legend in metal and US Florida death metal. Then we've got Paul Masvidal on guitars. We've got Sean Reinhardt on drums, and then we've got the great Steve DiGiorgio on bass. That's our lineup at this legendary stage. And man, what an album! I criminally overlooked this album for a long time. I did, admittedly, get into the band through Leprosy, and then went back to Scream and Bloody Gore. Then it was Spiritual Healing. Then sort of leapt forward to Individual Thought Patterns and Symbolic. And then the last 2 for me to get into were Sound Perseverance and Human. This is the colour scheme that we're dealt with here. Wild. Freaking wild. Awesome. As I say, Relapse have done a really good job with their reissues lately, because this is a heavy duty vinyl. It feels heavy duty. And what I do like, I like and I'm slightly perplexed rather by the shiny reflective sleeve that we get here. And I've got my lighting on in the background there, so I'm sure it's probably dazzling a little bit, but these reflective sleeves, mirrored sleeves, very glossy but nice, really nice packages. Flattening of Emotions, Suicide Machine, Together as One, Secret Face, Lack of Comprehension, See-Through Dreams, The Majestic Cosmic Sea into the Technical Barbarousy of Vacant Planet, and then a good old Kiss cover thrown in for good measure with God of Thunder. Start to finish, solid as a rock. Absolute masterpiece. Old school death metal, old school Florida death metal, but starting to show a lot more sophistication, intricacy, technicality and progression in there. Chuck was a genius, an absolute genius, and this is some of the finest death metal out there. I really am loving revisiting this band in quite a bit of depth recently. And you know what? Human, bloody great album. Absolutely. If you're not familiar with Death, I'd be quite surprised. But if maybe you are more of a casual listener, you'll gravitate towards Leprosy or Spiritual Healing, whatever. Give the other albums a go, because you won't regret it. So I've got a lovely Relapse reissue here of Human, which is absolutely glorious. And then sticking with the mighty Death, the album that followed on, album number 5 from 1993. This is Individual Thought Patterns. Again, very, very reflective, very shiny. Very nice package. Very nice package indeed. But I've been into this album for a little bit longer than Human. Again, this is a lovely package. And I know that this album does get kind of mixed responses. It gets mixed reception based on the lineup changes that took place, based on some of the sort of progressive elements and the technicality, which is, it's fine. It's fine. These lovely inserts, they're really cool with all these photographs, the old ticket stubs and photos. They're really cool. But yeah, this album, it gets mixed responses, but I personally think it's really good. So we've still got the core of the band. We've got Steve DiGiorgio and we've got Chuck Schuldiner. But this time we're joined by Gene Hoglan, the absolute drum monster, behind the kit, who is amazing. And then we've got Andy LaRocque on guitars, who you may have heard of from his time with, and continued time, I believe, with King Diamond in his band. And you know what? You can hear that it's Andy's guitars, or you can hear his very iconic guitar sound on this album. And it is brilliant, but it is an interesting fit. I personally feel that it works. I personally really enjoy it. So this is another very interesting splatter that we've got here, courtesy of Relapse. Freaking good. Freaking good. Really nice. And you know what? I would say that Individual Thought Patterns, for me, has rapidly sort of grown in my estimations. It's become one of my favourite Death albums. I seem to keep going back to this one. Certainly tracks like Overactive Imagination, the brilliant Jealousy, Nothing Is Everything, Mentally Blind is an absolute belter, Out of Touch, The Philosopher, but also the title track. It's amazing. It's one of those albums where I swear it gets better with subsequent listens. And you know, I absolutely love, personally, my favourite Death album to date is Scream Bloody Gore. I love the old stuff. I also really do appreciate the sound of Perseverance. You know, the most kind of technical that they got, that final album. But this is great. This is a really, really strong album. I absolutely love it. Album number 5, Relapse. Beautiful reissue from a couple of years ago, I believe. 2017. Yeah, 2017 reissue. Absolutely love it. Death. The mighty Death. Florida death metal at its best. So, we've got one final album to take you through here. And this one I am so pleased to have come across. Stumbled upon this on Amazon. This is just an absolute beast. This is the mighty Carcass from Merseyside, UK. Carcass. This album is Surgical Steel. This is the comeback album from, I believe it was 2012 or 2013. I think it was 2013, I want to say. Can't actually really remember off the top of my head, but Surgical Steel was the first album for, I believe it was 17 years between Swan Song and Surgical Steel. Don't quote me on that, it's just off the top of my head, but this is actually the 10th anniversary reissue. And I was actually just looking for something else. I can't even remember what it was. I don't even think it was a Carcass album, because I've got all the CDs. This is the only Carcass vinyl I have, but I was looking for something else, and then suddenly this pops up, and it was about £14, and it's a double album gatefold with lovely printed inner sleeves of this most marvellous melodic death metal grinding album, and it's a black and red kind of streaked vinyl. It's such a nice package. It really is stunning. I absolutely love this album. It's my favourite Carcass album. Thrilled to bits to have this. I've always loved this album since the moment I heard Captive Bolt Pistol announcing, ushering in a new era of Carcass. All those freaking years ago, and I was, you know, an early teen then, and it just blew my mind. It was some of the best freaking death metal. Not the heaviest, not the most extreme, but just some of the freaking best death metal I'd ever heard. Sounds amazing, produced by the great Colin Richardson, a master producer. You know, this is Carcass on such a fine form. Absolutely brilliant. The core duo of Bill Steer and Jeff Walker, absolutely, just delivering the freaking goods. Absolutely love it. Carcass are one of those heritage extreme metal bands, pioneering grindcore, moving into really extreme death metal, then into sort of melodic death metal, death and roll, and then now basically just doing whatever the freaking hell they want to do. But this is a really nice version. This is lovely. And I would say Nuclear Blast have done a really nice version. This is the 2023 reissue, including the bonus track, Intensive Battery Brooding, there as well. I think you get that version, or that track rather, on the Surplus Steel EP and the complete edition album, but this is great. This is just the part. Well done, Nuclear Blast, for producing such a nice version. Carcass, Surgical Steel. Tracks such as the very thrashing Thrasher's Abattoir, got a Congealed Clot of Blood, Master Butcher's Apron, the absolutely stunning non-compliance to ASTM F89912 standard, just rolls off the tongue, to the Granulating Dark Satanic Mills, my personal favourite track, 316L Grade Surgical Steel. Oh, it's brilliant. Absolute masterpiece. If you've not heard this album, frickin' check it out. And then just check out all the other Carcass albums. And in fact, if you're feeling really ambitious, check out my album ranking of the Mighty Carcass, which I did recently, if you fancy a enraging listen. Absolutely brilliant. Frickin' masterpiece. So there you have it. A quick run through of some of my latest vinyl purchases and additions to the collection. So we've got, just a review, we've got Conceived in Sewerage by Texas Brutal Death Metalers Devourment, UK Old School Death Metalers Memoriam, with the slightly disappointing production of The Silent Vigil, but still some cracking tracks on there. Then we've got Ripped to Shreds with Jubian, a very good album, very good band. As I say, they're kind of combining that old Left Hand Path era entombed sound with a little bit of a modern punch. Then we've got Scarab, Egyptian death metal with Martyrs of the Storm. And now we're on to the three highlights, probably my favourites out of this little bundle anyway. Death with Human, and I really want to track down these other the other reissues from this particular run. Definitely want to get Scream Bloody Gore in this run anyway. And I think we even get Sound of Perseverance in a double vinyl, long album. And then we've got Individual Thought Patterns, Glorious, Shiny Shiny, and then the centerpiece for me, Carcass, Surgical Steel. So that is my collection update for you. What are your thoughts and opinions on these albums, on these bands? Have you got these versions? Have you got different versions? I don't know. What are your thoughts and opinions on these bands and albums, my friends? Do feel free to comment. Do get involved in the chat there. Please do feel free to like, subscribe, share, comment. It's all very much appreciated. I really do appreciate the ongoing support. Thank you very much for that, my friends. Check back soon for more reviews and recommendations. I'll put a few more links up for the outro piece here. Do check back soon for more of the good stuff. And until then, my friends, take care of yourselves and stay heavy.